Wartime Money Part 2. These are more of the coins. Again, you'll have seen these coins before if you've watched my foreign coins made in the US series. All of these coins come from that. However, now I focus specifically on those that are made because of wartime, and usually World War II. There will be one exception, but also because they're of a different alloy than what we normally made for that country and or what normally existed for said country. So we begin here with this 2 franc that we made for Belgium, 1944. And there really wasn't much to it. The idea was we had the planchets left over from what we had used to make these 1943 cents. So this is essentially the same thing, other than the design is a 2 franc Belgian coin. Obviously, this is a wartime transition coin meant to help the country get through the war when they were not in a position to make their own coins. But the next one, however, is kind of unusual. This is not about World War II, but now we start looking at years just a little bit after. It is now the early 1950s. The Korean War has been going on full blast. And nickel, again, becomes a rather scarce and necessary metal. Meanwhile, Costa Rica would like these coins, which we had previously and would subsequently make out of copper nickel, the same as on our own regular nickels. But in the absence of that and wanting coins that would last, these are actually an alloy of chromium steel. So instead of zinc, it's chromium. And the alloy has worked extremely well. These coins stay very shiny. They almost never wear down. It takes a very long time. They look uncirculated, but this could have been in somebody's pocket for a year. You wouldn't know. So here we have a 5 centimos, dated 1953, which was for Costa Rica. Again, it's made out of this chromium steel, about 70% chromium, and the rest was balance was iron, as far as I know, is the alloy. And then here we go, República de Costa Rica, also 1953, and this is now a 10 centimo, same chromium steel alloy. And for 1954, we got around to making the bigger coins. So this is a 1 colon coin, chromium steel, 1954. Look at that. See, they look shiny, not because they're so brilliant and circulated, though they probably are close to it, but because they don't darken or wear down very much at all. And here is the 2 colones coin, America Central, BCCR, 2 colones, República de Costa Rica, 1954. So there it is. So that's kind of an unusual thing. This chromium steel alloy continued to be used off and on clear into the 1960s, some of which were again made here in the United States. But by the 1970s, that was over with. Now we move to another country, Cuba, or Cuba, depending on how you say it. We were already making 1 cent coins for Cuba. Oof. Let's see if I can stick the light on this thing. We're already making 1 cent coins for Cuba, and we made them out of copper nickel, exactly like our regular nickel. A rather interesting feature is that they tell the weight of the coin. That's un centavo on the front. And you look here, it actually says 3.0 M. No, this is the one that matters. Okay, hold on. Can I see this? 2.3 grams. Now, I find it interesting. The equivalent size coin made out of copper nickel for Cuba with the exact same design other than the date was that they were 2.5 grams. So this is a somewhat light, this brass is a somewhat lighter metal. So even though we are still making 1 cent, and as we'll see more, and here also the 5 cent coin for Cuba, we are making them out of brass rather than copper nickel, precisely to save the the use of nickel. And supposedly this brass was reportedly obtained from shell casings that had been, I guess, discharged by our weapons and gathered up and melted down and used as the source of some of the brass that's in here, or the copper brass. So that's kind of interesting. The 5 cent, by the way, again, same design other than the date, and it's given here as 4.6 grams. See if you can see that. 4.6 grams. But when it was made of copper nickel, it was 5.0 grams. So that's kind of interesting. The weight is actually reduced, even though the coin is physically the same diameter and thickness and design as formerly made for Cuba. Now, moving to the next country. Okay, Dominican Republic. Well, the cent we made for them was indistinguishable from the cent we made for them in other years. But again, just as we had our coins without tin, just copper and 95% copper and 5% just zinc for our 1944, we did the same thing for this 1944, where other years it was tin and zinc for that last 5%. So that's a slight wartime alloy. The 5% is probably, again, more interesting because unlike most others that we'll see here, including the Cuba one we've already seen, the copper nickel coin is replaced not with a brass coin, but with a silver coin, similar, exactly like our silver nickel. Same size, weight, diameter, everything except the design and so forth. So it's got silver, it's got manganese, it still has some copper, and it weighed 5 grams just like ours did there. So it didn't even alter the weight. So as a result, what you have is a coin that is effectively a silver nickel, but made for the Dominican Republic. So that's kind of cool. And that's the one other case where we use the same planchets as we used for some of our own coins, the Belgian 2 franc being the other. Ecuador is another example. Now these designs were actually being introduced during war, but they would continue to be used with regular copper nickel coins after the war. So these are brass again. So we have a 5 centavo, República de Ecuador, 1942, a 10 centavo, same country, okay, and a 20 centavos. Then, in 1944, we made the 5 again, this time with a little D on the top there for Denver. But otherwise, it's the same until it says 1944. We didn't make a 10 centavo for some reason. It just wasn't made. But there's also a 20 cent. And again, you look carefully, you can see the D on there for Denver. First year it was struck at Philadelphia. This year it was struck at Denver. And again, other than 1944, it's the same as the other one. So we're making a lot of brass during World War II. And by the way, revisiting Costa Rica, we did not make coins for Costa Rica during World War II, but somewhere coins were made during World War II, and some of those coins were made of brass, but we did not make them. Okay, just thought I'd note that. There are probably other places that had brass coinage. Now let's take a look at Fiji. Now again, we only did coins at all for Fiji during these 2 years. But apparently these 2 denominations of coins for Fiji were not customarily made in brass. So that was so that too is again something unusual. They were made in other base metals, but when we made these particular denominations, both the half penny and the 1 penny, see that S for San Francisco, we made them out of brass. Again, brass was a good and advantageous war material, a war metal that was easier to find, shell casings and all. And that's 1943. Yeah. 3S penny. See? Made out of brass. Just those years. We made this coin for France. They ended up using it mostly around in Algeria and other places to their south. Maybe a little bit in the northern of the part of the Mediterranean, but mostly south, like Algeria and maybe Libya and other places along there. Wherever they had their French activities, it is generally regarded as an Allied military issue. So, but it is a French, and it's 2 francs. Seems to be a real lot of 2 francs here. All right, we made this 5 kroner piece, which was regarded exactly as the equivalent of an American dollar, for use in Greenland, 1944. So that was used in Greenland, and that too was made out of brass. Okay. When we were making coins for the Netherlands, we mostly used their same metals, so I'm not counting all of those, just as I'm not counting the coins we made for Australia, or even the brass coins of 1 and 2 cents we made for Guatemala, since those coins were already, in the case of Guatemala, the coins were already brass before and after the war, during time that we made some. So it wasn't a unique metal design, even though it was a use of brass that we didn't do much of till World War II, and not much after, but some. But this one coin that we made for the Netherlands was made of brass. This 1 cent coin. Get the color to really come out. Yeah, okay. So I kind of categorize this here. And then we get all the way up to the Nicaragua. Again, we've been making coins for Nicaragua since World War I, and now during World War II, we make the last of the coins we made for Nicaragua, which, unlike previous years and afterward years, are once again made out of brass. 1 centavo de Cordoba, República de Nicaragua, 1943. Actually, this denomination, I believe, stopped during the war. All right, then there was a 5 one, República de Nicaragua. Oh, that's a good view of it, 1943. Okay. It's hard to get that to look at. There we go. And Dios. Well, whatever. Okay. 5 centavos de Cordoba. Okay. And we made a 10. These are not even the same sizes as the coins that were usual for these denominations, both before when we made them and after when they were made elsewhere. This is, however, the last set of coins we did make for Nicaragua, was these 1943 wartime era brass issues. So there we have it. Now we have the 25, which seems to be the same general size as the actual 25-cent silver we used to make for them. So these are brass coinage, and thank you for listening to part 1.